Hi, today we're going to be going over what happens in a reef tank when the ATO fails. Hello, and thank you for watching Sabina Reefing, where we go over product reviews and how-tos, livestock, care and selection, maintenance, tips and tricks. Come on, let me show you. So the smart ATO at the office failed, not a big deal. What we're going to do is we're going to take out the Tunzi oscillator out of this 300-gallon aquarium. It's been about 2 years in service, 1 year here and 1 year at my previous house in Corona. We're going to take that one and we're going to go over to the office. So it's going to get a brand new Tunzi oscillator, or used Tunzi oscillator. And this tank's going to get the Neptune Systems ATK. Wanted to do the ATK on this system instead of another Tunzi oscillator. That way we can have one module, the FMM module, control the leak detector and the auto top off. The Tunzi oscillator at the office will be just doing the top off, and then I'll have an extra module so that I can do leak detection there at the office. So the unit came out of this system nice and easy. Put the new optical eyes in this aquarium. I did not use the float valve that comes with the ATK because I already have my built-in float valve on this sump, so I don't need redundancy in the float valve. Putting the Tunzi oscillator in at the office was a little more difficult. It's a little bit tighter to get in and out of that system, so it took me a little bit longer, but we got everything installed. Luckily, this system had a float valve on it the entire time, so even though the ATO completely failed, we never actually flooded the office. I had a little bit of a scare though, because the water level comes all the way up to the float valve when the ATO failed, and that float valve, the mechanical float valve, was the only thing protecting my aquarium, and the water level was very high. So I was worried that if we ever had a power outage, which we had on Sunday, that it could end up flooding the office. It must have been very, very close, but it did not flood the office, which is a very good thing. People would have been probably a little bit more than a little bit annoyed with me on that one. But at least we have that backup float valve, and we tested it out and made sure it did exactly what it's supposed to. So it's important to know why things fail. So on the smart ATO, it wasn't actually the sensor. The sensor was completely turned off. It was this solenoid valve was actually letting in a little bit water through the solenoid valve and into the aquarium. So it slowly trickled up and slowly filled up my aquarium. So the solenoid valves is the main problem on the smart ATO. Luckily, with the new Tunzi oscillator, that's not going to be a problem. They've got their own brass heavy-duty solenoid valve that has worked flawlessly in this aquarium for a year. So don't have to worry about that anymore.
So you know it failed.
What do you mean it failed?
Yeah.
I just put it on.
It failed.
No.
Yep.
The new one.
Same way.
They're both leaking? So back to the drawing boards. The new Tunzi oscillator, well, the used Tunzi oscillator, is leaking straight through the valve just like the first one did. Weird? Yes. Known reason? Not yet. So I'm going to go down to the office and try and figure it out. A few weeks later, and I did find a resolution to the issue. I got rid of the really high dollar, heavy duty Tunzi oscillator brass auto top off valve that basically hooks into my RO system, and I went with something much less expensive. This sounds odd to go from expensive things that are failing to cheap, but what my theory is that, or what my idea is, I'm going to eliminate the expensive valve, and then I'm going to buy a bunch of the cheap valves. So I'm going to actually take and always swap these valves out every 10 months and set a reminder on my Neptune Apex, both of them, to swap them out for any of the valves. So I already have a brand new valve that just plugs into the DC 24 volt outlets for the Neptune Apex here at the house, and I have a brand new valve for at the office for whenever that one fails. So just in case anybody's curious, the valves for the ATK are 24 volts, and the valves for the Tunzi oscillator are 12 volts. So I will have a link in the description below. It's not affiliated or anything. That has both the 12 and the 24. You can put these on with simple spade lugs. They're $10 a piece, and when they fail, instead of being out a $100 bill, I'm out a $10 bill. If they're always going to fail after 6 months to a year, might as well just replace them. So I've had the Tunzi oscillator one last 1 year. I've had the Smart ATO one last 1 year. I've had that happen 2 or 3 times now. So I'm just not going to trust these valves. It's kind of funny, I just had this problem, and then BRS had come out with a video. I'll try and put a link in that in the description below, talking about ATO failures, and they were talking about not trusting these valves. So apparently I'm not the only person that's had these valves fail, and I'm probably not the last person that's had these valves fail. So my recommendation is whatever auto top off you choose to use a good one. And if you're going to use valves attached to your RODI system, they must have a float valve, because the electronic solenoid valves do fail. Apparently they fail fairly often. So I will never trust just one of those little solenoid valves again. Well, I never have, but I would highly recommend no one trust just the electronic solenoid, that they always have a backup float valve as a minimum requirement for having hooked up to your RODI system. I'd also try and set some alarms. I'm going to try and set some alarms for the Apex at the office with a little optical eye and an alarm using the ATK. And then I'm also going to take and put a leak detector. This tank already has the optical eye set to an alarm, and it also has the leak detector, and the mechanical float valve. I think that's enough redundancy to prevent a crisis inside the house. But if you got some more better ideas, please leave them in the comments below on what you did. And thank you. Thank you for watching this episode of Sabina Reefing. I've got a video here, and